So you guys have probably learned the most basic like genres already at school, like fiction and nonfiction. So, but within each of those, like fiction and nonfiction, there's multiple different subgenres. So, fiction, obviously, you guys have learned this before probably, are just made up stories and characters that are not true. And they're usually, fiction is written to entertain readers. So remember how last week we went over author's purpose? Usually, for fiction, the author's purpose is to entertain. And like they're not true, it's made up. So within fiction, there's all these different types. So there's realistic fiction, which is a story using made-up characters, but it could happen in real life. It's realistic, meaning like it's not anything that's like impossible, like fairies or like ponies or something like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a story about like real life. And then mysteries are suspenseful stories about puzzling events that are not solved until the end of the story. So you guys have probably read mystery novels before. Um, it's like something usually like the characters have to solve something. Um, and like you can guess, the readers can guess like what's going on. The next type of fiction is an adventure book, and that's a story about an exciting task that involves risk or danger. So there's usually a lot of action. Historical fiction is a fictional story that takes place in a particular time period in the past, and often the setting is real, but the characters are made up. So, it's like a fake story that's going on like sometime in the past, usually during a pretty like important event in history. Um, and since it's an important event in history, usually like the events are like the main events are real, but like the characters are not. Okay, and then fantasy is a story including elements that are impossible, so like it's not like realistic fiction, such as talking animals or magic powers or creatures. So like for example, Harry Potter would be fantasy because obviously wizards and magic is impossible. Or like any stories about like unicorns, fairies, those are really good examples of fantasy. And then the next type is science fiction, which is a type of fantasy that uses science and technology. So, for example, robots, time machines, etc. And usually science fiction is set in like a different type of world or sometime like super far into the future where there's a lot of new technology. And then traditional literature are stories that are passed down from one group to another in history. So usually it's passed down generations. And it includes folk tales, legends, fables, fairy tales, tall tales, myths, and there's a lot of different traditional literature from different cultures. So examples of traditional literature are folk tales, which are stories passed down in spoken words. And usually the author's unknown because um it was just passed down by like speaking, like so people don't know who originally started it. Um, and then there's often a lot of versions of the tale, sorry. And then a next type is a legend, which is a story based on a hero. And the main character has amazing strength, skill, power, or does like a really good deed. And then our next type is a tall tale, which is a story that uses exaggerated characters and events to explain how something was created. A fairy tale is a fictional story that often includes witches, royalty, giants, fairies, or other magical creatures, and often things occur in threes. So you guys have definitely heard of fairy tales before, like Cinderella, Snow White. So you can like imagine these stories have like a lot of witches and royalty, fairies, and like, just magical creatures. And you can think of like trying to think what comes in three in fairy tales. Like I don't know. Oh, like the three like wolves. I mean, what's it called? Oh, the three little pigs. That's a good example. Um, I don't know. A lot of fairy tales just have like things that come in threes. Um, you don't necessarily need that for it to be a fairy tale, but It's just a pattern. Um, our next type of traditional literature is a fable. And these are short tales that usually teach a lesson or have a moral to the story. And usually the main characters are animals. And then lastly, we have mythology, which is a story that explains how things in nature come to be in a fictional way. So they're not true again. And a lot of times the characters are gods or goddesses. So you guys have probably heard of like Greek mythology. That's probably like the most famous one. But there's a lot of different mythology in different cultures. Okay, and then for nonfiction, we have a pretty short section. These are real stories and people, and it's usually like information and facts. And usually the author's purpose is to inform the readers. So we have like informational texts, which provide facts about a variety of topics. So these are like books that are informing you about like sports, animal science, history, careers, travel, geography, space, weather, and like other topics. It could be about any topic really. These are just some examples. And then for biographies, biographies are stories of a real person's life written by another person, and autobiographies are the story of a person's life written by that person themselves. So basically what that means is if I wrote a book about my life, that would be an autobiography. If Sophie wrote a book about my life, that would be a biography. So autobiography is just when they're writing about themselves. And then our last genre kind of it doesn't really fit into any of these. Like it doesn't really fit into nonfiction or fiction. It could be both or either. Um, Poetry is verse written to create a response of thought and feeling from the reader, and it often uses rhyme and rhythm. And again, it can be nonfiction or fiction. And we will go through like these specific types of genres in like different units we have. But for now, we're just gonna do some like practice on identifying these genres. So, so we're gonna do this worksheet. Um, I'll read like these definitions, and you guys can tell me which one of these it is. So a thrilling story about a perplexing event that is not solved until the end of the story. Which one do you guys think it is? Ava, do you know what it is? Jamie, do you know what it is?
Oh, I don't know.
What? Okay, Anna said mystery. That's correct. So remember, usually in mystery novels, the characters have to solve something and there's a lot of action, so like thrilling story. And perplexing event is just like a confusing event, so that makes sense for mystery because they don't really know what's going on. So that's correct. Next one, a fictional story that takes place in the past. The setting is often real and the characters are usually made up. So which genre is this one? You guys can either type in the chat or unmute yourselves. Anna says historical, that's right. Again, remember historical, the characters are made up, but the setting is often real because the setting is like an event in history. And again, the word like past is kind of a hint for that. Okay, next, contains unrealistic settings and might include elements that are impossible, such as magic. Which one is that? Anna says fantasy. That's right. And remember, like fantasies, your stories about like unicorns, fairies, magic, like any of that that's like not able to happen in real life. And like impossible, like they said. Okay, next, cultural stories that are passed down through generations, such as folk tales and myths. Sophie, which one do you think that is? Sophie?
I don't know.
Okay, Anna in the chat said traditional, that's correct. Remember, traditional, like they're usually passed down from generation to generation, and each culture has, every culture has their own set of traditional stories usually. So that would be traditional literature. All right, next. A type of fantasy that weaves science and technology into its story. Which one do you think is that one? Um, Anna said science fiction, that's right. Remember, science fiction is usually in the future, and like this kind of gave it away, the word science. Okay, next, texts that provide facts about various topics. Which one do you guys think is this one? Anna said informational, that's correct. Remember, informational is a type of nonfiction. Um, Next, stories that have actually occurred in a believable setting. Which one is that? So which one of these could occur in real life, but the characters are made up. Yeah, realistic fiction. Remember realistic fiction, think about the word real in it. Like it can happen in real life, but it didn't. Um, Next, the story of a person's life written by that person. So again, this is like if I wrote a story about my own life. So what type of what genre is that? Sorry, I almost just gave it away. Yeah, Anna said autobiography. That's right. Next, the story of a person's life written by another person. So it's kind of similar to the last one, but slightly different. Um, Anna said biography. That's correct. And lastly, a piece of writing that has imagery, rhythm, and rhyme. And this is like the special one that I said could be either nonfiction or fiction. Anna said poetry. That's right. Okay. Now we're gonna go over another little worksheet. So this worksheet is just identifying whether the um, book below is fiction or nonfiction. So these again are the two main genres, and then within that there's like subgenres of like realistic fiction, science fiction, etc. So this worksheet gives you like a little description of what the book's about, and with that, you should be able to tell if it's nonfiction or fiction. So remember, fiction is made up and not real. Nonfiction are based on real events and information. So, number one says The Boys in the Boat by Daniel James is a story of the University of Washington's rowing team, which competed for a gold medal at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. So, does this seem like real or made up? Um, Sophie, what do you think?
I think it's real.
Yeah, so would that be fiction or nonfiction?
Nonfiction.
Yeah, good. Anna also said in the chat nonfiction, that's correct, because this is something that happened, like they competed for a gold medal. It happened 1936. Okay. Next, number 2, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling is a story about a boy who learns he's a wizard but must defeat an evil wizard named Voldemort. Is that fiction or nonfiction? Okay, Anna said in the chat it's fiction. That's correct, because obviously this is made up. It's not based on real events. It's literally impossible to happen because it involves magic and like witches and wizards and stuff. Good, so that would be fiction. Okay, number 3, The Giver by Lois Lowry is a story about a made-up society where a boy named Jonas must fight the sameness in this dystopian society. So there's like a keyword in here that might help you guys out if you're stuck. Yeah, Anna said fiction. The keyword I was talking about is made-up society, so these are not real. This isn't real society. These are not real events, so it's fiction. And lastly, Wild by Cheryl Strayed is about her life-changing 1,100-mile hike along the Pacific Crest Trail in 1995. So was this real or made up? Ava, what do you think? Ava?
Which one was it again?
Number 4.
Nonfiction.
Yeah, good. So this is about her life, like real events that happened in her life. So that's a nonfiction. This is not made up, so it's real, it's nonfiction. Good. Okay, now we're gonna do like a couple more worksheets and then hopefully we can end early. This is kind of like a continuation of last one. Just saying if it's fiction or nonfiction, and it gives like a little description. Again, fiction's made up, not based on real events. Nonfiction is based on real events. Okay. Number 1, Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak is a book about a young boy named Max, whose bedroom turns into a jungle where beasts called wild things live. So do you guys think this is real or not? Okay, let's see. Anna said this is fiction. That's correct. So what? Sorry.
Fiction.
Yeah, good, Ava. So that's also right. It's fiction. Obviously, this isn't based on real events. This is made up, so it's fiction. Okay, number 2, The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank is a book written by a 13-year-old girl who went into hiding during the Holocaust in 1942. So do you guys think this is fiction or nonfiction? Anna said nonfiction in the chat. That's correct, because this actually happened. It's based on true events. A hint is like it's a diary, so it's based on her life and like events, real events that occurred in her life. So it's nonfiction. Okay, number 3, The Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Ronald Dahl is a story about a boy from a poor family who wins a golden ticket to visit Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. He visits the chocolate factory where he sees strange things, including short orange men called Oompa Loompas, a machine that shrinks you, and gum that turns you into a blueberry. So do you guys think this is fiction or
Fiction.
Yeah,
Fiction.
good, Ava. So Ava and Anna both said it's fiction. Anna said it in the chat. But yeah, this is fiction because obviously this isn't real. Strange things, a machine that shrinks you, that's not possible. Gum turning you into a blueberry, that's obviously not real, so it's fiction. Good. Okay. 2 more worksheets and then we'll be done. Okay, this worksheet's about subgenres. So, oh, wait, actually, sorry. We're gonna do this worksheet first. So this is like a matching thing. So match these genres to the blanks. So I'll read these like descriptions first. So the first one, books are made up and not based on real events. So which one of these, yeah, which one of these are not based on real events? And these are like the main ones. So it's either nonfiction or fiction. Yeah, Anna said fiction. Yeah, fiction books are made up and not based on real events. Okay, so this one must be nonfiction, right? Nonfiction books are based on real events. Okay. And then the subgenres, remember, these are the genres like within fiction, like all these, or within nonfiction, like these. So, which one of these are stories that have events that could never happen in real life? Like it's impossible to, it can't happen in real life. Jamie, what do you think? We already used fiction, so we want something more specific. So like either mystery, informational, historical, not historical, um, science fiction or fantasy.
Wait,
Uh,
which one?
for number 3.
Um, Fantasy.
Yeah, good. So remember, fantasy is a type of fiction that can't happen in real life, like I've been saying. An example would be like Harry Potter or like unicorns, fairies, or like anything with magic, right? Right. Okay. Number 4, books. Um, these type of books are stories with clues centered around a puzzling event. That's your main clue. Anna said in the chat mystery. That's right. Um, yeah, good. Next, stories take place in the future and often include science and technology. Anna said science fiction in the chat. That's good, right? They told you science. And like I said, a lot of times this happens in the future. Okay, number 6. Stories are informative stories that describe events from the past. Your keyword is from the past. In the chat, Anna said historical nonfiction. Um, yeah, that's good. Remember, anytime it says like from the past, it's probably about history. Number 7, books are true and factual and often contain supporting evidence. And this would be informational, which is a type of nonfiction, but yeah. Okay. One last worksheet and then you guys can go. So this one's talking about subgenres. So remember, subgenres are all these genres. Our main big genres are fiction and nonfiction, and then subgenres are like realistic fiction, mystery, adventure, fantasy, whatever. Um, so that's like what it says up here. So this is gonna give you a short description, and then you guys are gonna determine if it's first of all fiction or nonfiction, and then
Yeah.
determine the subgenre. So is it like realistic fiction, science fiction, whatever. So number 1, The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin is a made-up story about a man who dies, then his heirs need to solve the secret behind his death. So your hints are made-up story and solve a secret. What do you guys think? First of all, is it fiction or nonfiction? Sophie, what do you think?
Fiction.
Good, yeah. So it's a made-up story. It's not based on real events. Sophie, what do you think the subgenre is? Is it fantasy, mystery, science fiction, historical? Oh, well, can't be those. So which one of these?
Mystery.
Yeah, good. So remember mystery, the characters are trying to solve something, right? And here, the character's trying to solve the secret behind his death. So yeah, subgenre would be mystery. Okay, number 2. National Geographic's kids book, Everything Dogs, is a book with many pictures and facts about dogs. Ava, do you think this is nonfiction or fiction?
It's pretty true.
What?
But it says it's a made up. It says it's a made-up story. Oh, that
Number
one's
two.
technically nonfiction. Fiction.
Wait, what?
Nonfiction.
Yeah, good. So, it's saying has facts. And if you guys know what National Geographic is, it gives like news articles and stuff about like nature and stuff. So, facts is your hint that it's a nonfiction because it's based on true things. And then in the chat, Anna said informational is the subgenre. That's correct because it's just giving facts and pictures about dogs. Um, it's just like informing readers of these things. Okay. Next, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis is a story about a group of kids who travel to Narnia, a magical world where animals talk and the White Witch has ruled for 100 years. Anna said in the chat the genre is fiction. That's correct. It's a story about like a magical world where animals can talk, which obviously can't happen in real life. So it's obviously not based on events from real life. And then Anna said the subgenre is fantasy. That's correct. Remember, fantasy is literally stories that involve magic and like talking animals and things that are impossible and can't happen in real life. So good. That's the last thing we're gonna do today. Thank you for coming. But you guys are free to